Do you eat enough to fuel your workouts? Have you always been this way? Have you always ate healthy? Or are you on a journey to eating healthier? How does what you eat affect your workouts? How does what you don't eat affect your workouts? What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, I want to talk about how eating affects our workouts. And ultimately, the question is, are you eating enough to fuel all the exercise that you do? And I wanted to talk about this with you guys after I stumbled across an article in Outside Online, and it is titled, Men, Are You Eating Enough to Fuel Your Exercise? Now, this video is not just about men. This article is about men. Up until 2014, it was really only women that had the focus on their exercise and if they were eating enough. And you've probably heard of the female athlete triad, which is a combination of disordered eating, amenorrhea, and osteoporosis, or osteopenia. I think that would still qualify. But we've known about the female athlete triad for a long time. But in 2014, the International Olympic Committee officially renamed the female athlete triad to RED-S, which is an acronym for Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport. Men whose hormone systems are just slightly different from women are still affected by disordered eating. And when you combine that with doing a lot of exercise, doing a lot of sport, there are some pretty clear downsides, which really, if we think about it, isn't really surprising. I guess before 2014, we were a bunch of simpletons who only looked at the female athlete's loss of her period as a sign that something wasn't right. It's actually pretty surprising that it took us that long to figure it out. But figure it out we have, and now we can all be equal in our disordered eating and all the bad things that come with it. Okay, so I should probably explain what RED-S is, because maybe you have suffered from it in the past, maybe you're suffering from it right now and you just haven't been able to label it, put a name to it. And basically the problem arises when we consume too few calories for what our body needs in order to perform basic functions. Okay, I know this isn't you, but this is going to help put it into perspective. Because believe it or not, there are people out there that don't actively train. There are people out there that are not runners, that are not athletes. I know it's hard to believe, but for those people, their body's energy balance is skewed towards things other than running or exercise. For example, the brain needs about 20% of your caloric intake every day to operate. The same with the liver. Your other organs like your heart and your kidneys, they need even less. But they still need that energy in order to keep you alive, to keep you functioning as you should. For a non-athlete, all the muscles in their body use about 20% of your caloric intake every day, which isn't much. We've got this organ right up here using 20%, and then every other muscle in our body of non-athletes is using 20% also. But needless to say, for you and I, for runners, for athletes, our muscles demand quite a bit more. They need a little attention in order to keep them moving in the right direction, to repair them after we thrash them, and to get stronger so we can go out and do it again. And it really isn't a problem as long as you eat enough, as long as you're consuming enough calories in order to feed your brain, your liver, your muscles. There really isn't an issue. The problem arises when we don't give our bodies the energy it needs in order to perform at its best, to build back that muscle that you're breaking down through running, through working out. And this can be an easy trap to fall into, especially if you're trying to lose weight, especially if you're trying to maintain a lean body mass. And of course, there is that very unhealthy notion that losing weight is going to help you become a faster runner. And my friends, that's just not true. Now, of course, for someone that is overweight, they could probably use to lose a bit of weight just to maintain their health. But once you get into that healthy range, losing more weight can be more trouble than it's worth. Just look at Mary Kane. And if you don't know who Mary Kane is, I'm going to link to an opinion piece that she wrote in the New York Times, and it talks about her story, how she went from being super fast, then she joined Nike, and things just went downhill from there. And I've got to tell you guys, when I read this article, I was brought back maybe 10, 11, 12 years ago. I actually thought that if I kept losing weight, I would get faster at my marathon times. And you know what? Up until a certain point, I did start to get faster. But you know what also happened? My bone density dropped through the floor, and I started breaking bones left and right. You've probably heard me mention it on the channel before, how I've broken my hip 4 times. Most notably, I think, was the 2015 Boston Marathon, when I actually broke my hip at mile 25 of the marathon, and I continued to run to finish the race. Wasn't pretty. But my point is, by telling you that, is that there are some pretty serious downsides to not fueling your body correctly. And guys, I think this is one of these things that can really creep up on us. As runners, as athletes, we want to be as healthy as we can. So what are some of the things that we do when we want to be a healthy person, when we want to be a healthy eater? We start cutting back on things. Maybe we're going to cut back on the sweets. Maybe we're going to cut back on the soda. But then perhaps we start cutting back on carbs, or we start cutting back on fat. I know it seems absurd now, but there are diets out there that athletes follow that make them restrict carbs, that make them restrict fats. And if we could boil down RED-S into just one essence, it would be restriction, calorie restriction. And it starts by cutting out things that perhaps seem unhealthy, and then it kind of snowballs. But as in a good number remember in my videos, we got some science to back this up. And this study looked at 50 competitive male cyclists. And the researcher made them fill out a questionnaire. They had a clinical visit, and the idea behind the questionnaire and the clinical visit was to determine which of these athletes' eating habits were restrictive enough to put them into a category labeled as low energy availability. Guys, I know this study is also about cycling, but it does certainly seem to me that most studies looking at stuff that we want to know about get these results by looking at cycling. I think it's just a much easier metric to measure than running. But it really doesn't matter. Like in other studies we've looked at, we as runners, as athletes in general, we can take these results and we can definitely get some value from them. The researchers also looked at the weekly volume, how often they trained in a fasted state, their history of intentional weight loss, how they fueled for workouts lasting more than an hour, what they ate after their workouts, and generally their diet. So the results were pretty sensational. In fact, in this article on Outside Online, they say that the results were eye-popping. So the athletes whose training and dietary patterns seemed to be insufficient, their bone density and their testosterone levels were much lower than is expected of men of their age. Of course, when it came time to the actual experiment where they did a 60-minute time trial, those showing signs of red S did worse than those who didn't show signs of red S. But it's not just about low bone density, it's not just about performing worse, which I think we all want to avoid. It's a little more far-reaching than that. Red S can also affect your immune system, your mood, your heart, your coordination, your glycogen supply, and your thyroid level. And my friends, you should also know that protein synthesis also takes energy. So if you are deficient in calories, if you are deficient in energy, your body may not build back stronger after a workout, which means that not only are you not getting the best out of yourself in the workout, that workout counted for nothing because you're not coming back stronger. You're not building to a better you. We think this only happens to elite athletes. But here's the thing, elite athletes often have a team around them, and that team is keeping an eye on their athlete. So this disordered eating often gets identified before it goes too far. Now we've got athletes like you and me, and we are just trying to eke out every bit of potential out of ourselves. We want to get better, we want to get faster. We all buy ridiculously priced shoes in order to get a couple more % energy return in our stride, and some of us think that perhaps if I lose a pound or two, it's going to make me faster. Well guys, we have to be careful. Of course, we're all well-intentioned and none of us want to be unhealthy. Do you know what they say about the best laid plans? Okay, so with women, this is the reason it's been thought of as a female problem for so long, because when they lose their period, it's a clear sign that something's going on. But with men, it's a little different. Now, it can be diagnosed with blood tests, but maybe this is something you can nip before you go to the doctor in order to get a blood test. So do you have fatigue that is not explained by something obvious? Have you had trouble sleeping? Or you had increased stress levels? There's also low libido, digestive issues, a lack of energy, a lack of enthusiasm. These are all signs that you may not be getting enough energy to fuel your body for your workouts and the rest of your life. And the article wraps up with a sentence that I really get a kick of, just because it's true, and that is we have to trust the millions of years of evolution that has taught us that our bodies will perform well if we give it what it needs. And of course, there are suggestions to getting enough energy, taking in enough calories, and that's to consume about 300 calories after every workout. Of course, this has to be taken with a pinch of salt. If you go out and you run for a mile or two, coming home and adding 300 calories probably going to result in some unwanted side effects. Your body's going to be getting enough energy to do what it needs to, but it's also going to be getting a little more. The article also points out that waiting too long between meals can put your body into an on-again, off-again starvation mode. And it suggests that simply by changing the timing of your meals will ensure that you get what you need when you need it. And that could be all it takes to get your body back into a healthy state. Now, here's something that I found interesting that I haven't heard before. But the article says that it's important not to let your post-race snack or meal affect your regular scheduled meals. Let's say you wake up, you go for a run for an hour, hour and a half, you come home, you have 300 calories to get that fuel back in. You're then going to eat breakfast as normal. Who does this? I want to hear from you in the comments, because well done. If I had a gold star, I would give it to you for doing that. Because for me, this is where I struggle. On a regular day, I will go out and I will run for an hour, and then I won't eat breakfast for a couple more hours. And it's a bit tricky because I'm not hungry at all until later in the day. So guys, what do you think? Have any of you watching this experienced any of the symptoms of red S? If so, and you want to talk about it, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Of course, if you don't want to share with the entire group, feel free to email me. Alright guys, until the next time, be kind, be happy, run well, and eat well. I'll see you in a couple of days.